The evening air outside the tall building was cold enough to make anyone hurry home, but inside the lobby it was warm and bright. People walked in and out, focused on their own tasks. No one paid much attention to the young girl sitting near the glass doors. She looked tired, her clothes worn out, her small bag resting beside her feet. She kept her head down, as if she hoped to disappear into the floor tiles. She had been outside for hours before she finally gathered the courage to step into the lobby. She wasn't sure if she would be allowed to stay even for a minute. She only wanted a little warmth. The cold had made her fingers stiff, and her stomach had been empty since morning. She whispered polite words when the security guard approached her, his eyes suspicious and annoyed. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply asked if she could sit for a short while. That was all she wanted. The guard frowned, uncertain, and that moment was when the CEO walked in. His steps were sharp, confident, and the sound of his shoes echoed through the wide lobby. He had just come from a long meeting, and his mood was already weighed down with numbers, deadlines, and decisions. When he noticed the girl sitting at the entrance, his eyebrows drew together. He didn't understand why someone like her was inside his building. The guard straightened up quickly and explained the situation in a hurried tone. The CEO listened, though his eyes stayed fixed on the girl. She raised her head for a moment, just enough to show her tired eyes before she lowered it again. He let out a small sigh, the kind that came from irritation mixed with confusion. "Why is she here?" he asked quietly, yet his voice carried across the lobby before the guard could answer. The girl spoke in a soft voice. She didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for pity. She simply said she needed a moment to warm up. Her voice held no anger, only exhaustion. Some of the workers walking by slowed down, curious about what the CEO would say. He wasn't known for being patient. He was strict, focused, and always in a hurry. Seeing a homeless girl in his lobby didn't fit into the neat order of his day. He looked around and noticed the old piano sitting in the corner of the lobby. It had been there for years, mostly untouched except for occasional guests pressing random keys while waiting for someone. The CEO's eyes moved from the piano back to the girl, and something in his expression changed. Not kindness, not sympathy, but something close to amusement. "If you can play that piano," he said, pointing toward it, "I will feed you." The guard looked shocked. A few workers exchanged puzzled glances. It was clear he didn't expect her to take the offer seriously. To him, it was just a sarcastic challenge, one that would end quickly. He didn't think she had ever touched a piano in her life. The girl's eyes moved from the CEO to the piano and back again. She didn't respond right away. She sat still, as if the words needed time to settle in her mind. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, but she also wasn't used to being offered anything, not even in a mocking tone. She slowly stood up. Her legs felt weak, and her fingers felt stiff from the cold, but she walked toward the piano. Every step felt heavy, partly from hunger, partly from fear that she would embarrass herself. She didn't know if this was a trap or a joke, but the promise of food was enough to make her try. In the corner, the piano looked older than she remembered from the times she had peeked inside this building. From the outside, its wooden surface was scratched, the finish fading, but the keys still caught the light. She reached it and rested her hand lightly on the top, feeling the cool surface under her palm. The CEO crossed his arms, waiting. The guard watched with a confused look. The workers who had stopped now stood at a respectful distance. No one spoke. The lobby grew strangely quiet. The girl pulled out the small bench and sat on it slowly. She stared at the keys, not touching them yet. She could feel everyone's eyes on her, and her heart pounded so hard she wondered if the sound might echo louder than the piano. For a moment she closed her eyes. Memories of old community centers, places she used to sit outside of, listening to musicians through open windows, floated into her mind. She remembered how she had taught herself to follow the sounds, how she would tap on her knees to match the melodies she heard. She remembered sneaking inside once in a while when no one was watching, just to touch the keys for a few seconds. She took a slow breath and placed her hands on the piano. The keys felt cold beneath her fingers, but familiar, like a memory she hadn't lost. The CEO watched her, still expecting the moment to fall apart. He didn't believe someone in her situation could play even a simple tune. He stood there with a slight smirk, waiting for her to hit a few random notes and give up. But she didn't hit random notes. Her hands moved carefully at first, almost shyly. Then the sound that came out was soft, smooth, and unexpectedly warm. A simple melody floated through the lobby, quiet but full of emotion. It wasn't loud or showy. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The workers froze where they stood. The guard's mouth slowly opened in disbelief. The CEO's smirk faded, replaced by something he hadn't felt in a long time: surprise. The girl kept playing, her fingers slowly loosening as she remembered more. Her stiff hands warmed, moving with more confidence. The melody grew deeper. It filled the lobby in a way no one expected. The sound touched something in the people listening, a feeling of longing, sadness, and hope at the same time. She wasn't performing to impress anyone. She was playing because it was the only thing that felt safe, the only thing that made her feel alive. Music had always been her quiet place, even when life felt too heavy to carry. The CEO found himself standing straighter, unable to look away. He had heard many things in his life, from business presentations to award-winning performers on stage, yet none of them had struck him the way this simple, raw music did. The girl finally stopped, her fingers resting on the keys. The sound faded slowly, leaving behind a silence that felt different from before, not empty, but full. No one moved at first. They were still trying to process what they had just witnessed. The CEO's face changed again, the sharpness softening as he stared at the girl who sat quietly on the piano bench. She looked up, unsure of what would happen next. She didn't know if he would keep his word. She didn't know if he believed what he had just heard. All she knew was that she had played with everything she had left. The CEO took a slow step forward. For once, he had nothing clever or sarcastic to say. He didn't mock. He didn't question. He simply stared, still trying to understand how someone who looked so lost, so forgotten, could create something so beautiful. The girl waited, her breath unsteady, her hands still trembling slightly. She felt exposed, unsure if she had made a mistake by playing at all. But she had followed the offer he gave her, even if she knew it was not given kindly. As the lobby slowly returned to normal sounds, footsteps, distant voices, the hum of lights, the CEO finally spoke. His voice was quieter than before, less sharp, as if the music had softened something inside him. And in that moment, the entire atmosphere of the lobby had changed. Everyone sensed it, though none of them could fully explain why. The girl's life, without her even realizing it, had just taken its first unexpected turn. The lobby slowly returned to its usual movement, but something in the air felt different. People who had been walking past earlier now whispered quietly among themselves, glancing at the girl who still sat on the piano bench. She kept her hands folded in her lap, unsure if she should stand or stay where she was. Her heart was still beating fast, not just from playing but from the weight of all the eyes on her. She didn't know what the CEO would decide. She didn't know if he felt tricked or embarrassed after watching her play. She had never meant to surprise anyone. She only wanted something to eat, a simple meal that would stop the painful emptiness in her stomach. The CEO stood there for a few long seconds, looking at her in a way that made her feel seen for the first time in a long while. Not judged, not ignored, just seen. He seemed unsure of what to say, and for someone like him, silence felt unusual. But the music had left him speechless. Finally, he took a breath and spoke in a calm tone. "You can come with me," he said quietly. "You'll get something to eat." His voice no longer carried the sarcasm it had earlier. It was steadier, more grounded. The girl hesitated, unsure if she heard him correctly. She looked at the guard, then at the CEO again. When he nodded once, she slowly stood up, gripping her small bag with both hands. The workers watched as she followed the CEO across the lobby. She felt everyone's eyes on her, but she kept walking, her steps small and careful. She didn't want to cause trouble. She didn't want to seem ungrateful. She just wanted to understand what was happening. The CEO led her to a quieter hallway connected to the building's cafeteria. The cafeteria wasn't full at this hour, and the soft lights made the room feel less intimidating. He pointed toward the food counter. "Take whatever you want," he said. She looked at the trays, unsure if he really meant it. The smell of warm food filled the air: fresh bread, rice, soup, vegetables, things she hadn't tasted in a long while. She took only a small amount at first, afraid of choosing too much and appearing greedy. "Is that all?" he asked, noticing how little she had taken. She nodded quickly. "This is enough." He didn't argue. He simply gestured for her to sit at one of the tables. She walked over and sat down, placing her bag beside her feet. The moment she took her first bite, she closed her eyes for a second. The warmth of the food felt like a blanket wrapped around her empty stomach. It made her feel human again. The CEO stood at a distance for a moment, watching her. Something about the way she ate, slow, careful, grateful, pulled at him in a way he didn't expect. He wasn't used to paying attention to things like this. His days were normally filled with business calls, meetings, and numbers. But now he found himself pausing. After a while, he walked over and sat across from her. She glanced up, surprised he would sit with her instead of leaving. "How long have you been out there?" he asked quietly. She swallowed her food and looked down at her plate for a moment before answering. "A few months." He didn't interrupt. She continued slowly, choosing her words with care. "My mom used to work in a small shop. When the shop closed, we couldn't pay rent. Things got worse from there. She got sick. And then it was just me. I tried to find small jobs to survive, but most days were hard." Her voice stayed steady, but her eyes showed a long story she wasn't telling. Nights of sleeping on benches, days spent searching for food, moments when she wondered if anything would ever change. The CEO listened, his usual sternness fading. He wasn't used to hearing stories like this in person. He read reports about poverty, saw news about homeless communities, but hearing the words directly from someone living through it felt different. "What about the piano?" he asked softly. "Where did you learn?" A small, almost shy smile touched her lips. "I didn't learn anywhere. I used to sit outside community centers and listen. Sometimes the windows were open, and I could hear people practicing. After a while, I could remember the sounds. I tried to copy them on any piano I could find." "You learned just by listening?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "I never had lessons, I just remembered." He leaned back slightly, trying to understand how someone could pick up music like that, almost like breathing. It didn't make sense to him, yet he had just heard her play. He couldn't deny what he had witnessed. They sat in silence for a while, the girl eating quietly, the CEO lost in thought. Every now and then, a worker passed by the cafeteria entrance and glanced in, shocked to see the CEO sitting at a table with someone like her. When she finished eating, she looked at him again, unsure of what would happen now. She didn't want to ask for anything else. She didn't expect more help. She was just grateful for the food. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded. "Do you have anywhere safe to stay tonight?" Her silence was answer enough. She lowered her eyes. She didn't want to lie. The CEO let out a slow breath and rubbed the back of his neck. He wasn't someone who made decisions based on emotion, but something about this situation didn't let him walk away. "You can stay in the staff rest area for tonight," he said. "It's not much, but at least it's warm." She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. She didn't know how to respond at first. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said simply. "It's safer than the streets." He guided her through another hallway to a small room where employees sometimes rested during long shifts. It had a simple couch, a blanket, and a small heater. To her, it felt like a luxury she didn't deserve. "You can sleep here," he said. "Someone will check in the morning." She held her bag tightly against her chest. "Thank you. I don't have anything to give back." "You don't need to give anything," he replied. "Just rest." He stepped outside the room, leaving her alone. She placed her bag on the floor and sat on the couch. She felt the soft fabric under her fingers, something she hadn't felt in months. Her eyes stung for a moment, but she blinked the tears away. She didn't want to cry. Not now. She lay down slowly, pulling the blanket over her. It was warm, comfortable, safe, something she almost forgot how to feel. As she closed her eyes, she remembered the piano, the keys, the melody she had played. She never expected that a few notes could change the course of her night. In another part of the building, the CEO leaned against a wall, still thinking about the girl and the music that had filled the lobby. He had no idea why he felt so unsettled. Something about her story wouldn't leave his mind. He told himself it was just one night of help, one small gesture. But deep down, he sensed that this moment was not the end. Something had started, something that would change both their lives in ways neither of them could see yet. The night passed quietly in the small staff rest room. The girl slept more deeply than she had in months. The warmth of the blanket, the soft hum of the heater, and the simple sense of safety wrapped around her like a gentle shield. She didn't wake every few minutes the way she usually did on the streets. She didn't have to worry about footsteps, noise, or danger. For the first time in a long while, her body allowed itself to rest. When morning arrived, she woke slowly, blinking at the soft light coming from the small lamp in the corner. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She sat up quickly, clutching her bag, before she remembered the CEO's words from the night before. She relaxed just a little, though confusion lingered in her eyes. She washed her face in the restroom nearby and tried to make herself look as presentable as possible. Her clothes were still old, still worn, but she tried to smooth them. She didn't know where to go or who to thank, but she felt she couldn't just stay in the room without saying something. When she stepped out into the hallway, an employee saw her and nodded politely, then walked her to the cafeteria where breakfast was being served. She hesitated, unsure if she was allowed, until the employee assured her it had been approved. She took a simple breakfast, just some bread, eggs, and tea, and sat quietly in a corner. She ate slowly, feeling the warmth return to her body. People walked in and out, some glancing at her with curiosity, others pretending not to notice. She didn't mind. Their looks were nothing compared to the cold staring of strangers on the streets. Meanwhile, the CEO had arrived earlier than usual. He walked through the hallways with a thoughtful expression, his mind still replaying the music he had heard the previous evening. The melody refused to leave him. He wasn't someone who often stopped to reflect on emotional moments, but something about the girls playing had struck him deeply. He went to his office but couldn't focus on the emails that waited for him. Instead, he found himself wondering where she was now, if she had eaten, if she had slept well. These weren't thoughts he expected to have. He had always been strict, practical, and distant when it came to personal matters. Finally, he stood up and walked toward the cafeteria. When he entered, he saw her sitting in the corner, quietly drinking her tea. She looked up as soon as she sensed someone approaching. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him, and she stood up quickly, unsure if she was supposed to do so. "You don't have to stand," he said gently. She slowly sat down again, her posture tense. He took a seat across from her, just like the night before, but with a calmer atmosphere surrounding them. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, thank you." He noticed how carefully she chose her words, as if every sentence had to be weighed before it left her mouth. She didn't want to overstep. She didn't want to be a burden. "I'm glad," he said. "We'll figure out what comes next." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You're not causing trouble." She lowered her eyes, not fully convinced. Trouble was the thing people often believed she brought, even when she did nothing. After a moment, he cleared his throat. "Would you play again today, if you feel comfortable?" Her eyes lifted, surprised. "Right now?" "Not right this moment, but at some point today. I want a few people to hear you." She blinked, not understanding why anyone would want to hear her. But he looked sincere, not mocking like the night before. She nodded slowly. "I can try." His lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. "Good." He stood up and motioned for her to follow him. Together they walked back toward the main lobby, where morning light streamed through the tall windows. The piano sat there quietly, untouched since she last played it. He didn't tell her to sit yet. Instead, he walked a few steps away and made several phone calls. She didn't listen to what he said, but she could tell he was arranging something important. After a while, a few people arrived, employees from different departments and two older individuals, who carried small notebooks. They didn't look like regular workers. They studied the piano with interest, whispering among themselves. The CEO returned to her side. "These are people from a music foundation." Her heart skipped. "Why are they here?" "I asked them to listen," he said simply. "Just play whatever you feel like." She swallowed hard. She wasn't sure she could play in front of so many people. Her hands felt cold again, and her legs trembled slightly. But she reminded herself of the fear she had felt yesterday, the fear of hunger, of cold, of another empty night. Compared to that, playing the piano wasn't frightening. She walked to the bench, her steps slow but steady. She sat down, took a deep breath, and placed her hands on the keys. For a moment, she closed her eyes, letting her mind drift to the memories of melodies she used to hum to herself on quiet nights. Then she began to play. The notes came out soft at first, almost uncertain, but as the sound filled the lobby again, her hands remembered their path. The melody grew warmer, stronger, more confident. She didn't try to sound perfect. She didn't try to impress anyone. She played the way she always had, honestly, from the small place inside her that still held hope. The Music Foundation members exchanged surprised looks. One of them leaned forward, clearly impressed. They scribbled quick notes into their books, their faces full of curiosity and admiration. The CEO stood off to the side, watching her with the same quiet awe he had felt the night before. He watched her fingers move, watched how her expression softened when she became lost in the music. He couldn't believe how someone who had never taken a lesson could create something that touched people so deeply. When she finished, the final note lingered in the air before fading gently. The lobby fell silent again. Then one of the foundation members stepped forward. "You learned this on your own?" he asked. She nodded nervously. Just by listening. That's remarkable, he said. You have an incredible ear for music. It's rare. Her cheeks warmed with embarrassment. She didn't know how to react to praise. She had lived so long without hearing anything good about herself. The CEO stepped closer, noticing how overwhelmed she seemed. Take a moment, he said softly. She nodded and took a step back from the piano, holding her bag tightly. The foundation members continued discussing quietly. The CEO listened to their comments, trying to understand their expressions. After a few minutes, one of them approached him directly. She has something special. Natural talent like this isn't common. With proper guidance, she could become something remarkable. He nodded, feeling something shift inside him, responsibility mixed with hope. The foundation members turned back to the girl. Would you like to visit our center? One of them asked. We can evaluate your skills more deeply. You don't have to decide right away. She looked at the CEO, unsure. She didn't know these people. She didn't know what evaluation meant. All she felt was fear mixed with a tiny spark of curiosity. You'll be safe there, the CEO said. I'll take care of the arrangements. Her fingers relaxed slightly around her bag. She nodded, not because she fully understood what was happening, but because she trusted his words more now than she had the night before. The foundation members smiled warmly and began scheduling a time. The CEO stayed beside her, making sure she wasn't overwhelmed. When they left, he turned to her. There's more inside you than you realize, he said. She looked up, her eyes uncertain. I just play because it makes me feel less alone. That's exactly why people will want to hear you, he said. She lowered her gaze, trying to process his words. For years she had only played for herself. In moments when the world felt too heavy, she never imagined that her music could matter to anyone else. The CEO noticed her uneasiness and didn't push further. For now, let's just take it one step at a time, he said. You don't have to rush. They walked back toward the cafeteria for lunch. She followed him quietly, still lost in the whirlwind of the morning. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't dare imagine too much, but she could feel something changing around her, like a door slowly opening to a world she had never been allowed to enter. The CEO, too, felt something shifting inside him. He didn't understand why he cared so much already, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let her disappear back into the cold streets. Not after hearing that music, not after seeing the strength in her eyes. The day continued, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Something new had begun, something fragile, something hopeful, something that would change everything if she found the courage to follow it. He stood frozen as the last note faded into the air, almost as if the sound itself didn't want to leave the room. She didn't move either. She kept her hands resting lightly on the keys, breathing softly, unsure whether she had done something wrong. The room felt different now, heavier, more awake. Even the guards near the door, who had been joking a few moments ago, were quiet. He didn't know what to say at first. He had expected random noise, maybe a few clumsy keys, something he could laugh about later with his friends. But this wasn't something he could laugh at. It felt like the music had taken him somewhere he hadn't visited in a long time. She slowly pulled her hands back from the keys and looked up. Her face carried that same polite uncertainty, the look of someone who never wanted to be a problem for anyone. I can stop if you want, she said in a soft voice. He shook his head without thinking. No, it's fine. He didn't understand why his voice felt tight. The next morning arrived quietly, with soft light slipping through the small window of the staff rest area. The girl woke up slowly, unsure for a moment where she was. The warmth, the blanket, and the quiet room all felt unreal. She sat up, blinking as memories of yesterday filled her mind. The music, the cafeteria, the CEO's face when she played, the unexpected kindness. She touched the blanket again, almost to confirm it wasn't a dream. Then she gently folded it, placed it at the end of the couch, and picked up her small bag. She didn't want to look like she took anything for granted. She stepped out into the hallway, hoping she wasn't in anyone's way. One of the building workers walking past stopped when he saw her. He remembered the scene from yesterday, when the CEO allowed her to stay. He didn't know much, but he gave her a polite nod, as if to say she was safe here for now. The girl thanked him softly and stood near the wall, unsure what she should do next. She didn't expect anything more. She wasn't here to cause trouble. She just didn't want to be thrown out before she at least thanked the CEO again. Down the hall, the CEO stepped out of his office earlier than usual. He had barely slept. The memory of her music kept replaying in his head. He wasn't someone easily impressed, but her talent had stayed with him all night. He wanted to find her, make sure she had eaten, and understand her situation better, though he wasn't fully sure why. When he turned the corner, he saw her standing quietly near the wall, holding her bag close to her chest. She looked small and unsure, as if she expected to be told to leave. "You're awake early," he said. She nodded. "I didn't want to be in the way." "You're not in the way," he replied. He studied her for a moment. She looked tired, even after a night of rest. Life had clearly been hard on her, harder than someone her age should ever experience. "Did you eat?" he asked. "Not yet," she answered quietly. "Come," he said. He led her back toward the cafeteria. A few workers cleaning up after breakfast looked surprised to see him arrive with her again, but no one said anything. The CEO wasn't someone they questioned. He asked the cafeteria manager to prepare a proper breakfast, and soon a warm plate was placed in front of her. She sat carefully, still adjusting to the feeling of being treated kindly, like she mattered. As she ate, the CEO sat across from her again, watching her with a thoughtful expression. "Do you have any documents?" he asked gently. "Identification, anything like that?" She shook her head. "Everything got lost when I had to move from place to place." He nodded, taking this in. Without documents, it would be harder for her to find work or receive support. She was essentially invisible in the system. "What about school?" he asked. She hesitated before answering. "I stopped going after my mom got sick. I tried to take care of her. After she was gone, I couldn't go back." Her voice softened, not with sadness alone, but with a tired acceptance of things she had no control over. The CEO leaned back, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. He wasn't thinking like a businessman now. He was thinking like someone who had met a person with extraordinary talent, living in unfair circumstances. "You know," he said, "most people can't play like you, not even trained musicians. You have something rare." She didn't answer. She looked down at her hands, as if unsure she deserved that kind of praise. He continued, "If you had a chance, would you want to learn properly? Real lessons, real training?" She looked up quickly, her eyes brightening. "I would, but I know it's expensive. I can't afford anything like that." He didn't respond right away. He was thinking. He had the ability to change something here, even if it wasn't part of his job. But offering help was not something he did lightly. After a moment, he said, "I want you to play again." She blinked. "Now?" "Yes," he said. "There's a music room on the top floor. Come with me." She followed him through the elevator to a quiet floor she had never seen before. There was a small practice room the company sometimes used for events or recordings. Inside was a grand piano, polished and beautiful, the kind of instrument most people only saw in pictures. When she stepped inside, she froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She had never been so close to a piano this perfect. "You can play it," he said. She approached it slowly, running her fingers gently across the smooth surface. Then she sat down, her posture changing instantly. She looked at the keys with a mixture of awe and longing. The CEO stood near the door, arms crossed, trying to hide the curiosity he felt. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys. The sound that filled the room was even richer than the lobby piano. She played softly at first, almost testing the keys, then eased into a melody she had learned by ear long ago. The notes flowed out of her naturally, like they belonged to her. The CEO listened, feeling the same quiet shock he felt the day before. She wasn't just good, she was gifted. Her playing carried emotion, depth, and something unteachable. When she finally stopped, she looked at him nervously. Was it okay? More than okay, he thought. But he simply said, "It was incredible." He stepped closer, thinking carefully before he spoke. "I want to help you," he said, "not just with food or a place to sleep. I want to help you build a future." She didn't react at first. The words were too large, too unexpected. A future? Yes, you shouldn't be on the streets. And someone with your talent deserves a chance to learn and grow. Her eyes slowly filled with emotion. She had spent months hearing people tell her to move along, to get off their property, to stop asking for help. She wasn't used to anyone offering her anything, let alone something this big. "But why?" she whispered. The CEO paused for a moment. "Because what you have is rare. Because I believe you can go far. And because I don't want to see your talent wasted." She gripped the edge of the piano bench, trying to stay calm. She didn't want to burst into tears. She didn't want to embarrass herself. "What would I need to do?" she asked. "For now," he said, "stay here. We'll arrange a safe place for you. Then we'll work on documents, lessons, and whatever else you need." She stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. The idea of being safe, of sleeping indoors, of learning music properly, it felt like another world. "Are you sure?" she asked again, because she needed to hear it one more time. "Yes," he said firmly. "I don't make promises lightly." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of his words settle inside her. When she opened them again, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The CEO watched her, knowing this decision would change things for her and possibly for him too. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing: he didn't regret it. The girl looked back at the piano, touching one key softly as if thanking it for giving her a new beginning. That sound, the quiet note, marked the start of the life she never thought she would have, and neither of them realized that the world outside was about to take notice of her talent too. The journey was just beginning. The days that followed moved in a way the girl had never experienced before. Everything felt new, uncertain, and almost unreal. She stayed in a safe room the company arranged for her, small, clean, with a real bed and a door that locked from the inside, something she hadn't had in a long time. She slept deeply the first 2 nights, her body finally relaxing after months of being alert. Each morning, she woke up still surprised she wasn't outside in the cold. The CEO checked on her often, not in a controlling way, but out of genuine concern. He asked if she had what she needed, if she felt safe, and if she wanted anything. She always said she was fine, even when she wasn't sure how to express what she felt. Kindness had always come with conditions in her past, but here, no one asked for anything in return. One morning, he took her back to the music room. He told her he had arranged for a music instructor to come later in the week. She didn't know how to react. She had never had a teacher before, not a real one. She had only learned by watching her mother's hands. But that morning, before anyone else arrived, he asked her to play again. She sat down at the piano, now feeling a little less afraid of the keys. She had played so much in the last few days that the instrument felt like a familiar friend. She began a soft melody, one she remembered from her childhood. The CEO stood behind her, listening quietly. Her music always seemed to bring peace to the room, as if the world slowed down when she played. After a few minutes, he walked over and placed a small device on the nearby table. It looked like a simple recorder. "What's that?" she asked. "I'd like to record your music," he said. "Just for practice. You should hear how you sound." Her eyes widened. She had never heard her own playing in a recording. The thought made her nervous, but also excited. He pressed a button. "Whenever you're ready." She nodded and started again. This time she played with more feeling, letting the sound guide her instead of fear. When she finished, he stopped the recorder. "Would you like to listen?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. When he played it back, she covered her mouth softly. She didn't expect it to sound like that: smooth, emotional, full. She didn't know she could produce something so beautiful. "That's you," he said quietly. She blinked fast, fighting tears. "It doesn't sound real." "It's very real," he replied. He didn't tell her that he planned to show the recording to someone who worked in music promotion. He didn't want to overwhelm her. Not yet. Later that week, the instructor arrived. She was a calm, experienced woman who worked with young musicians. When she heard the girl play, she needed only 1 minute to understand the truth. This wasn't just natural talent. This was rare, unmatched. After the lesson, the instructor pulled the CEO aside. "She needs formal training," the instructor said, "and soon. Her ability is bigger than anything I've seen in years. She has potential for concerts. Maybe more." The CEO nodded, feeling a strange mix of pride and responsibility. "We'll do whatever she needs." The girl, unaware of the full conversation, sat on the piano bench, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. She liked learning. She liked feeling that her music mattered. But a small voice inside her whispered, reminders of her past, reminders that good things didn't last. That voice grew louder. A few days later, when she overheard someone talking in the hallway, "She's just a homeless kid," one employee whispered. "Why is the boss spending so much on her?" "Who knows?" another replied. "Maybe it won't last. People like her, they come and go." The words hit her like a cold wave. She walked back to her room quietly, her hands trembling. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want people to think she was taking advantage of someone. That evening, she told the CEO she wanted to leave. "Leave?" he repeated, surprised. "Why?" "I don't belong here," she said softly. "Everyone knows it. People think I'm trouble." He looked at her carefully. "Who said something to you?" She shook her head. "It's not important." "It is important," he said firmly. You're not going anywhere. You're safe here. And you deserve every chance you're getting." She lowered her head. "I'm scared, I know," he said. "It's new. But don't run from something good just because life hasn't given you many good things before." For the first time, she allowed herself to believe he meant it. Over the next few weeks, she threw herself into her lessons. She practiced for hours each day. She learned proper techniques, music theory, and how to express emotion intentionally through each note. Her instructor said she learned faster than anyone she had ever seen. Meanwhile, the CEO began sharing short clips of her playing with her permission to a few trusted people in the music world. One of them, a well-known event organizer, called him immediately. "Who is she?" the organizer asked. "She's unbelievable. We want her to play at our charity concert next month." The CEO hesitated. She was talented, yes, but was she ready for a real stage? A crowd pressure. But when he told her about the offer, she surprised him. "I want to try," she said, her voice steady. So they prepared. She practiced every day. She learned to control nerves. The instructor worked with her on stage presence. The CEO made sure she had the clothes she needed, simple but elegant. The night of the concert arrived. Backstage, she felt her heartbeat racing. She had never seen so many people gathered for music. She peeked from behind the curtain and stepped back quickly. "It's too many," she whispered. The CEO placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me. You belong here. Your music belongs here. Don't think about the people. Play the way you always do. Play from your heart." She took a deep breath. Then another dot when her turn came. She stepped onto the stage slowly. The lights were bright. The room was silent. She sat down at the piano. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the keys. For a moment, she froze. Then she remembered her mother's words, "Music keeps the heart from breaking." She closed her eyes and played. The first notes were soft, then stronger, then filled with emotion she had held inside for years: loneliness, hope, fear, gratitude. Every feeling poured into the music. The crowd leaned in, pulled into her world. Some people wiped tears. Some closed their eyes to feel every note. When she finished, the silence lasted for a heartbeat. Then the applause erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It wasn't casual clapping. It was thunderous. People stood. People cheered. She looked out at the crowd, stunned. Her hands shook. She had never felt anything like this. Backstage, the CEO waited. When she walked off the stage, he didn't say anything at first. He simply smiled, proud and amazed. "You did it," he finally said. She smiled through tears. "I never thought I would have a moment like this. You made it happen," he told her. "Your music brought you here." That night changed everything. After the concert, offers came in: training programs, scholarships, small performances. People wanted to hear her. They wanted to support her. But more importantly, she began to believe she belonged in this world, not because someone rescued her, but because she had a gift that deserved to be seen. Months passed. Her skill grew. Her confidence grew. And each step forward reminded her of how far she had come. One afternoon, while standing in the same lobby where everything started, she touched the piano gently. The CEO walked over, thinking about the past. She nodded. "This is where my life changed," he smiled. "And it's only the beginning." She sat down at the piano, played a soft melody, and felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Her journey had been hard, unfair, and full of struggle. But now, she realized something important. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was finally living.